I've been sitting here trying to figure out how I got talked into getting up here to do this. I thought we'd give a brief history of the church. Our church and rectory were built in 1967. The cost was just under $400,000. And at that time, Julius Honnold, a parishioner, gave $146,000 when they built this. In 1970, 3 years after it was built, our debt was down to $83,000. At that time, we had 2 priests and a live-in housekeeper. We also had a suite for the bishop when he would visit Oaks. So it is a maze. The rectory is a maze of rooms and offices. And in 1977, the social center was built. From what we find, the cost on that was around $175,000. So in 44 years, we have not done any major building to speak of here. 5 years ago, the diocese was instructed that all the rectory, the priest's living quarters, and the offices have to be separate. And I don't know how many of you have taken a tour of the rectory. The offices were right in the middle of the rectory, bedrooms on either end, and so that's how we got. The diocese said we have to start at a way to separate them. These are guidelines from the diocese. Another one of the guidelines when we have a building project of this size is we have to have architects look at it for structural purposes, things like that, give us ideas on. So we interviewed different architectural firms, and Schultz and Associates out of Fargo was chosen to be the architectural firm to help guide us through this process. During the committee meetings, there were parishioners brought up the idea of a friendship room or fellowship room for like funerals, instead of the family gathering in the social center by the kitchen where everything is set up, to have a nice area like some of the other churches do, where the family could gather before and after a funeral, or for weddings, or different things in the church. Afterwards, after they're done presenting the diagrams for the church, we'll have a question and answer period. If some of you are not comfortable with speaking, there will be question cards. You can write your questions on a card, and we'll answer those. Also on the east side, it's been chalked out there what the entrance would look like. The footprint is chalked out there. And after that, Father will give us where we're at financially, where we sit right now, and what it will take to build this new addition. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Dave Schultz and Amanda Hagen from Schultz and Associates, and they will explain this process.
Good morning. It's our pleasure to be with you this morning. We'll be presenting on the screen here. If anybody would like to move a little bit closer within safe distances, and you certainly can do so, but this will be our image on the screen, as well as some images we'll set up upstairs. We've been working with the building and had the privilege of working with the building committee since last fall. and have looked at a wide range of options. We have to report that the building committee worked diligently. I mean, this isn't an easy process, but what we did is we looked at a whole range of options, and we took some pieces of some of those options and pulled them together with other options to really come up with the strategy that the building committee, that we're presenting on behalf of the building committee this morning. So what we want to do is we'll walk you through the plans. We can talk about a few other details once we've done that, and then we will welcome question and answers. And again, as Red just mentioned, if you'd rather fill out a card and send it up, we're happy to do that anonymously as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda to walk through the plans.
Can everybody hear me? My mic seems to be working okay, I think. Okay, good. To echo what David said, we just want to thank you all for inviting us into your parish, and we understand that this is a big decision and a big financial commitment, and we're very happy to be involved, so thank you. And the text here might be kind of small and difficult to read, so we do have some printed boards that will be up and available afterwards as well. And you're more than welcome to come up and take a closer look or look at that in your own time. We will leave those behind here so that you have a chance to review them if you want to take a look at some of the closer detail, and then we can walk the site afterwards as well, and we'll be around for questions. So to give an overview of the site plan that we're looking at today, all of these plans will be a little confusing because north is actually to the left on these plans, so just keep that in mind. We'll do our best to talk through those spaces and explain in which way is which direction. This square right here is the existing sanctuary that we're in today, the space that we're in here, the fellowship hall, the gymnasium, which you're all familiar with. This is that connecting corridor that connects the two, then the narthex space, and of course in green here is the rectory and the portion that we will be remodeling as part of the project. In blue here, you'll see that we have a proposed courtyard infill, and we'll talk through that on the floor plans a bit more as well. This is a floor plan of the existing facility today, which just gives you an idea of some of those current spaces. So sanctuary again here, the narthex space with this little rectangle here is actually that curved masonry wall with the crucifix just outside these doors here to help orient you a bit. And the existing pair of public bathrooms that are there today, and those offices that Red was mentioning that are sort of located right in the middle of a lot of residential functions today. So we've got a residential kitchen, a laundry area, and a couple bedrooms sort of along the perimeter. And having the offices right in the mix of that area was not ideal. And so the solutions that we're going to we explored a range of options that really work to solve some of those wayfinding issues that we have today, so that some folks that maybe aren't as familiar with the parish or where the offices are had some trouble finding them at times. And so you'll see that reflected in the plans today. Again, just highlighting the locations of the courtyard infill, which this area from about here to here is all outdoors today. And this other portion on the other side of this darker line down the middle is actually I'll call it the coat hallway, where your coat storage is today, just outside these doors to the left. Another close-up of the existing rectory floor plan. And getting into the proposed floor plan that we are looking at, which does a remodeling in the rectory area, which is on this right-hand side here. I'll start us out sort of in the entryway, and then we can go from there. So in this peach-colored area, this space, you'll see this dashed line coming down the middle, is where that outside wall is today. And then it continues down. This is that coat storage hallway that I was mentioning. And our new entry would actually propose pulling infilling between the two portions of existing buildings and actually pulling that front face of your new entry out to give you really a more defined entry space. We received some feedback and talked in great depth with the committee about, well, sometimes when people come here, they don't exactly know where to go or where they're supposed to enter the building. And so pulling that entrance out allowed us to really define that main entry point so that there's not really a question of where you're supposed to enter. Off of the main entry vestibule here, which will actually face southeast, contrary to the way the plan is situated here, we've got in blue business functions. So this would be Jane's office here. The administrative functions would be right adjacent to the new entrance so that she has good visibility of folks coming in and out of that main door. And then we've added a door here to secure the business suite, which is all in blue. We've got Father's office just adjacent to Jane's here in this, what we're calling a business suite, right off that main entry point. And then room for a couple of chairs if there ever is a need for a waiting function. We do have this sort of angled room is a proposed workroom space. So that would serve a number of functions. That's really meant to be a multi-purpose room. And thoughts around the Director of Religious Education using that space. Maybe that could double for money counting functions as needed. And of course, with some support, printer storage functions for the business functions as well. So that's meant to be a multi-purpose, sort of a flex space. And I'm going to jump back over to the public functions here. So off of the main business suite, we've expanded that main entry corridor quite a bit. I'm having trouble reading the dimensions here, but it's roughly 20 feet wide from here to here. So that corridor today grows quite a bit. So you've got a bit more queuing area for larger events, for funerals, for holidays, when we've got a lot of traffic and a lot of people trying to get to the coat area on their way in. So that just really opened up that space and allowed that to happen. And then off of the expanded entry or queuing area, we've got the friendship room that Red was mentioning. And that space is large enough to accommodate roughly just under 40 people. And so the thought behind that function in that space is maybe there's some soft furniture in that space, maybe a few tables, and people can gather together in that space. It's a fellowship area for larger events. So maybe the family would use it for funerals or wedding prep area or miscellaneous functions that would be able to happen in that area, which is a bit more intimate than the current gymnasium is, and quite a lot smaller too. But it's really meant to be a friendship or gathering fellowship space. And coming back down this coat corridor, I've been calling it, through the narthex space, in bright orange here we've got expanded restroom functions. And still in each one of those toilet rooms we've got a couple of stalls. The feedback we received from the committee during the process was sometimes it's a bit difficult because people don't know that these restrooms back in this area exist, or they have trouble finding them if they're not familiar with the parish. And so it's sort of served to guide as a wayfinding point too that makes the restroom location pretty clear. And then on the green areas of the plan here, I think we'll start with sort of the entry point, which is off of this narthex space where Father would enter into the rectory living areas. We come in the door here and we've got really an open floor plan for the living areas. So some of the difficulties that Father and the priests before that have been living in this space were dealing with was really, it was kind of a dark and uninviting space, honestly, before. And so what we thought would be great to do is to open up some of those windows and really maximize the amount of natural light into those functions. So opening up that floor plan allows really a lot more light in from the outside of the building. You've got that wonderful south facing facade of your building on that side. So we open that up, and then possibly enough to accommodate a large outdoor patio on that south side, so that in our very limited North Dakota summers, we could enjoy some of that nice outdoor space as well. Off of the main living, dining functions and kitchen functions, I should mention that we've got access from our business suite into the kitchen. Now, we know that sometimes volunteers like to come in and cook meals in the kitchen spaces, and so having that adjacency to some of the business suite area was important, so that you're not going through the entire residence to get to the kitchen or entering in through, a back laundry room. So it solves some of those few of those issues. The other functions that we have here on the east side of the plan, the top of the plan here, currently in the rectory there is a 3-stall garage. And so we've reduced that to 2 stalls and accommodated some mechanical and storage functions within the garage just to help to organize some of those storage functions. And coming down to the west side of the plan, on the bottom of the plan here, we have the priest's bedroom with a remodeled, handicap accessible toilet room and bathroom area that is directly connected to the priest's bedroom. And off of that, we have left a few guest room spaces and one that acts as a dual purpose study space for father if he's not in the business suite and needs some study functions within the residence. And then we really have kept the 2 guest rooms that were in place on this west side as they are today, and also reused the restroom function for guests in that space. So that gives really a good overview of the floor plan. And again, we're happy to talk through this. I know we threw a lot at you here, and we'll do a question and answer following. I think we'll skip ahead to the exterior image of the building. So this is the entry addition that I was mentioning that actually infills. So here's the courtyard just beyond what you're seeing on this front face that's actually marked out on the site that we'll walk after this. And we have the vestibule that comes out, and the architecture of the vestibule really helps tie into the architecture above the sanctuary. We were really trying to pay homage to that and keep with the existing really wonderful elements that you have today. So tying in that cross piece on the front entry. And then just a side view of what that would look like as you're entering from the parking lot. Another exterior view. These are some of the interior functions. So this would be the friendship room space that we've been talking about. So a mix of some soft seating elements, maybe a couple tables, and we did consider doing a kitchenette function at one point, but also we discussed that perhaps the workroom could double as a kitchenette function in the end. So you won't see that kitchenette reflected in the current plans. This is the priest residence, so this would be the dining room area looking out across that really large open living area that we were talking about. And this is that enlarged main entry lobby area. Just beyond this, if you look down this hallway, that is where the existing coat hallway is today. And then the administrative office would be right off of the left side of where you would enter. So it's readily visible, and there's not a question about where the office functions are. Just another view of the friendship room entrance here. And an additional view of the business office function, which may have some kind of casework storage built in for display. Okay.
I'm going to mention, my mic working? Okay. Mention a couple of other details, if you will, that are sort of not part of the plans. One of the things that we did very early in the process is to walk through the rectory, brought our engineering team down to evaluate systems, mechanical and electrical primarily, and obviously looked at structure and those sorts of things. What we don't want to do is guide the parish to new space and not take care of existing conditions. So our findings in that were, first of all, that as we looked at the rectory electrical systems, like electrical panels are an obsolete panel that you can't or don't have readily available breakers and so on for. The mechanical system, while one unit is relatively new, another unit is quite old. And so we're looking in the extent of remodeling in the rectory to really look at new mechanical systems and new electrical distribution. Additionally, the electrical service itself that serves the complex also is obsolete, and so budgeted in the project is upgrading the service that serves the whole facility, not just the rectory or the expansion. And finally, the mechanical system that serves this space that is in the basement of the rectory, are actually mostly under the narthex. There's been discussions over time to upgrade the control system on that. It's an old pneumatic system, and updating that to electronic digital controls. And so that is part of the project as well. Likewise, new windows in the rectory. So you really, you've done the re-roofing work and so on. So just wanted to fill in a little bit of the technical look at this as well. That was part of the project.
Right. To add one more sort of technical item, we've got a new roof coming in here at roughly where the existing tapered roof starts to transition down to the more vertical face. This area today has a lot of issues with drainage and water pooling in that location, and frankly, some drainage issues where we've got drainage from the roofs coming down right over main circulation paths. So in the winter, as we know, that gets very icy. The plan with the addition is to internally drain the roof water into that space and run it to the north of the site. Just an additional technical item that we wanted to point out.
So with that, I think we will open it up for questions.
Or comment cards, if anybody has those.
Does anybody have cards? I can probably gather those.
Can you explain how that internal drain is going to actually work a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I can speak to that. Oh, sure, is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Because of the roof slopes that we have coming down on either side, we have the rectory roof that comes in an angle. We've got the angle roof of the worship space. Adding on a sloped roof is not feasible. And so we have a membrane roof that is proposed that will have internal roof drains, and those drains would go out to the north just east of, between here and the social hall where the grade moves out. That will also take a good portion of the water, or the portion of the water from the rectory and the worship space here that currently drains on the ground, and so mitigating some of that as well. But it'll be a membrane, probably a PVC or TPO roof membrane, and will tie into the angled roofs on either side.
And the
The pipe actually runs inside the building and goes out just at where it exits the building, so it's all warm until its exit point. Yep, there will be. So that membrane will pull some of the shingles off to give ourselves a good portion of freeboard so that new roof comes up, and any water that's shedding off or snow that will drift in, because we're in North Dakota, we know that, will have its opportunity to melt down and go out.
And the term flat roof is sort of a misnomer because we do have a 1/4 inch per foot slope to those drains. So the roof is not dead flat. It does slope enough to get some drainage to that point. Thank you.
Yes.
Is there a plan for a janitor's supply closet? Right now, I know that the little janitor room is probably gonna be taken up.
Jump back.
The bathrooms and the janitor stores things in the bathrooms, in the men's shower and the women's shower and a little tiny room. I mean, these are all over the place and I was just wondering if there was a bigger space that would be accessible for the custodian.
Yes, we have thought about that, and in fact, received some feedback recently where we may consider making a modification to what's shown on the plan today. So currently, our janitorial mopsing functions are here within the residential space. Now, it may be handy, and we've received some feedback to have that closer to the public space. Now, we had planned for a millwork function here for some of the brochures and material storage at that point. But that space right here could easily be converted to additional janitorial storage, and we could consider moving the mop sink to that location as well, and additional supplies. So good feedback,
good
and
feedback.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
How many square feet is there gonna be in this new addition? Because we already have the rectory, we already have the church, that courtyard, how many square feet is that?
In the courtyard, so the fellowship room right here is roughly 575 square feet. 575,
Going all the way to the end, and there, how
sure.
square feet is that?
That's probably another, well, we've already got this square footage.
1,200 is
So-
what I was gonna guess.
Yep.
Yep,
That's the only new space we're gonna be requiring, the rest is already here.
correct.
Correct.
I've got a question here. When was the floor plan first drawn up, and what date was Schultz and Associates hired for this job? I'm trying to recall. When did we first start
It
working
was,
on the project? Fall? November?
No.
Was it
Right, I think we
August?
really started our work in September, October, so. And it was, I don't know exactly when the first plan was drawn up. Again, we brought, I think the first time we came, we had 4 versions, and we probably created another 8 in the process, but that gives you an idea of the timeline. So it's, the committee has been at this for 6 months nearly.
Does the plan include like any remodeling of the existing bathrooms down or like the social center that we use now, like any kind of a facelift on those areas that are already to kind of make it all consistent?
It doesn't currently take into consideration that scope. The focus of this project and approval from the diocese to proceed was really around the rectory functions, which expanded into a larger fellowship area, but currently, no, that is not in the scope.
Part of the expanded toilet rooms here was also about having a refresh set of restrooms, and also not sending guests who may be here for a funeral down and around 2 corners, and the light switches outside the room, and so we tried to accommodate some of that. But no, the committee, we always have to work hard at kind of setting the boundary, if you will, to say what's the highest priority at this point.
What kind of time frame would you think for the construction? How long of a, would we be under construction?
Sure. I would imagine probably a 5 to 6 month construction period. So, to back that up, obviously you've got the funding and approval process would need to move forward. We would have about 2.5 to 3 months of work to create construction documents and put this project out for bid, and then the construction would start thereafter. So there are a number of steps that happen. I should just point out that the bidding process I just went over in a cursory way, that really is to your advantage of we put together documents, we'll want to identify with you contractors and put this out for a full bid process. And because of the detail of the documents, each of those contractors and their primary subs like mechanical and electrical will all be bidding the same set of documents. So as we open bids, it's not, well, this person included this and somebody else included something else. It truly is a bid process, and that works to your advantage. There's clearly a dollar savings working through a bid process. The advantage we have here as a private entity is that we don't have to open it up to anybody and everybody. So if we or members of the congregation have had concerns with a particular contractor, we don't have to invite them to bid. And so at that point, we really look at the low bidder as the successful bidder.
And on the flip side of that, we can also reach out to folks who you all know, who you would like to be involved in the project or who are familiar with the parish itself. We've worked a lot actually with Mr. German on the HVAC analysis side of things, and he got together with our engineers when they were on site for the technical analysis. He knows the HVAC systems that are in place better than anyone, and so certainly we would welcome any opinions for folks that you'd all like to see bid on the project.
What is the extent of the mechanical replacement? Is it going to be the entire mechanical system, or leave some of it in place, or just so people understand what's...
Yeah, very good question. So the repeat. What's the extent of the mechanical upgrade? Is the
mechanical replacement?
Right. So everything in the rectory, as well as this new enclosed space, would in essence be new mechanical. The exception to that is there is an existing air handling unit that was put in fairly recently. We're certainly going to look to reuse that equipment. But the ductwork, which runs in the attic and does and so on, is obsolete to handle what we have here. So, and there'll be obviously some new equipment for the expanded space. So, in essence, it will be new, with the exception that there's a piece that if I recall, like 5 or 6 years old, that we would certainly want to leverage and at least evaluate if we can leverage that.
So are they going to replace the boilers, both boilers? Because you have an off-peak electric boiler that's approximately 8 years old, and then you have some older propane-fired boilers.
Right.
Are those going to be replaced?
Those aren't. Thank you for taking that a step further, because that's serving in large part, that's serving the complex. We are still... Are not. We may look at maintaining perimeter heat in addition to the furnaces, which would work off of those boilers and leverage that off-peak ability that you have. There is one important thing that's being replaced, though, is the chiller. I forgot to mention that. The chiller that serves primarily this space would be replaced. That is, it's original to the building, and it's time to be replaced, upgraded. Right. Yeah. Sorry, I hadn't mentioned that earlier. Thanks for your question.
Septic system-wise, everything being handled, we're not doing anything outside, bigger septic with drain field, et cetera, taking bathrooms and that, or is that all?
You're served by the city utilities, and those would not have to be upgraded. The one thing we were hoping to do at one point was to see if there was a storm sewer line that we could tie into to take some of your roof water. That doesn't exist in the near vicinity, so we're redirecting that area that we talked about at the addition, but that'll flow north as the rainwater does off of these two elements.
Maybe a stupid question or whatever, but you know that you talk about replacing the existing cooling system for this that's been here for 40 years. What's wrong with it?
The cooling system itself is not changing, only the chiller itself, so the refrigerant part of the system. The air handler, you've actually, this facility was built very, very well. And the quality of the system, the air handling systems, has been one it's held up over time, but it's also one that's has the ability to, if it needs a new blower or what have you, that it can be done incrementally. But the chiller itself is, technology that is you can't even, getting to the point that you can't buy the refrigerant any longer for it because that's been upgraded. So it's, try and do the math here, it's got to be 40 years old or so. And Father will tell you, it can be noisy. And so that's a sign that it's getting near its end of its life.
It's the pneumatic controls that we've had trouble with sometimes, and since I've been here, people are just freezing in here, and sometimes it's just really hard to control this pneumatic control. We are going to spend some good money on that, and so this is rolled up in that project.
Okay, I think we'll turn it over to Father as he's, what we will share here is Father is coming in that the estimated cost for the project as it's laid out today is $980,000. So it's a significant investment without a doubt. And so I'll let Father speak to strategies of fundraising and dollars that are available for the project.
Can you break that down as far as like what the cost of the rectory is, and then the cost of the new family room or entrance room there?
We've looked at that with the committee. I don't have the number precisely. It's
somewhere upwards of, I would say,
two-thirds
Yep,
is the rectory,
that's
or
about
a little more. 2/3 to 3/4 of those dollars.
So the price doesn't include the asbestos removal and furnishings, and we have $572,000 in the building fund, and with our estimation of overall being careful, it'd be $1.2 million. So we would have to raise about $800,000 to leave a good cushion in the building fund, $800,000. And fundraisers often ask the priest to commit to this project first publicly. So I've done that. Of that $800,000, I will do 1/20th of it. Even if I'm pulled away in 4 years, I will continue to pledge that amount, 1/20th of it. I've done that before. I have pledges elsewhere. Basically, St. Charles is reaping the benefits of me being frugal for a long time. And so I'm willing to do that. And I think, if you want this, it could be a great addition. I don't know, have I missed any financial elements? $572,000 in the building fund now. And we're estimating that we'd overall, to be careful, about $1.2 million. And then with the asbestos removal and the furnishings, there was one other element that was not included in the price. Do you remember?
IT and AV, but that would really be minimal. That is things like your data for your computers and that kind of thing to support the business functions, which you may have some of today.
Okay.
The wiring, the low voltage wiring network is all included in the construction cost, but if you're needing to buy some additional computers, or if we set up a, AV in one of the rooms, so we're talking about a couple or a few $1,000s.
So okay, so that's a minimal. So any questions on the finance of it all? The God's Gift appeals for ministries in the diocese that serves us as well. Like we get help from the religious ed office, we get help from the family life, to produce these videos and stuff, and we show them. The diocese, though, wonderfully, under Bishop Folda, decided to take a Homerding estate gift to the diocese, and it was a large estate, and we took advantage of it in Grafton. If we do a project that is approved by the diocese, and once the money is in, we have the expenses and the money in, we get 10% of it back. So we did a kitchen for $450,000, and after we did the paperwork, we got $45,000 back. We took windows from Cardinal Mitch Seminary and put it in the south hall wall of the parish center. That was $192,000. We got $19,000 back. So that's available as well. And the diocese has done that, which really is kind of awareness that the diocese doesn't exist only in Fargo. This Bishop Folda is aware that people in the rural areas need incentives. It's called an Homerding incentive fund or something like that. So if we raise 800,000, we got the expenses and stuff, we could get 80,000 back. We have to apply for it.
How much did you say we have right now for
In our building fund, we have 572,000.
why do we have to deplete that building fund 100%?
We're not depleting it to 100%. We're going to leave about 200,000 in it or more. That's why the price is higher. Yeah, the traditional wisdom is that you always have some reserve to fall back on. We have other things that if people want to express their passion or zeal for the temple, and we have other things like I mentioned last Sunday, we have 3 different endowment funds, one for music, one for youth, and one for kids, religious education. So those are the 3 endowments. Since then, since I've come here, we started an endowment fund for the cemetery, and it went to, we have 23,000 in that now. Endowment funds are basically where it's invested in the market, and you get a 5-year rolling average of 5% on those funds. So eventually, if I am able to stay here until I retire, I'd like to see the cemetery fund at 100,000. I mean, in Cogswell, we have a Calvary cemetery. We just started that, and unbelievably, we got 2 $15,000 donations from people that were from California now, and they have relatives there. So we have like 65,000 already in that endowment fund. St. Mary's also, since I've been here, started an endowment fund. We have over 10,000 in that right now. So trying to plan for the future and not drain the reserves, always have some help. And I think right now there's opportunity, and I think we should step out in faith personally. And this is all up to your pocketbooks, basically. I've made my commitment. And to kind of plan for the future, I've seen I've been very glad, like when I went to Nativity, they had this kind of friendship room, and it was used after daily mass and used a lot. And then also at Grafton, they had a gathering space, and it was really added to the community element, faith life of the people gathering, and that's where we have the casket now, and different things like that. So, any other questions on financing or any other questions? I know some people consider it extravagant, but I'd rather be extravagant to this space and this place, even if I'm pulled away in 4 years, to leave something behind, rather than just be extravagant with myself. Or
Could you discuss, like, how we have to have so much of the money raised?
yes, thank you, Michelle. We can't move forward until we have at least half of the money available in cash, and we have to have the rest pledged. So the last thing I want to do is step out in debt. I mean, I hate that. My dad lived under debt in the farming and everything. So we'd have to have a commitment from the people before we even move forward. And we have two different options right now. We have a lot of options, but I want help with fundraising, paperwork, and that kind of stuff. And so we will be contacting everybody. Now the diocese contacts everybody in their homes through God's gift, and a lot of people give to God's gift that don't give to the parish necessarily, because the diocese reaches out to all the people, and I want help with that kind of stuff, some professional help. And they also can look for grants and that kind of stuff.
I guess that was my question on updating the HVAC system, that all the grants available that we're looking into for energy efficiency. Is there any grants available?
That's a very good question. I'm not totally sure. We did apply for a grant for the payment protection plan. It was a payroll protection plan, and we did get $15.1 thousand during this pandemic, and then we went through the paperwork and got that forgiven. So that's part of that, why we have $572,000 in our building fund. There are other opportunities, like a second rollout, where you could apply for things like automatic faucets, so people don't have to touch them, kind of for future protection against pandemics, and people touching things. Those are possibilities too. I'll be the first one to admit that I'm not great at that kind of stuff, administration, and I think the help for parishioners, one in particular that helped with that. Any other questions on finance? So we have a little gathering in the parish center, and the kids are down there. Thank you all for staying and spending your Sunday. I thank any of you listening online. I thank you at Foreman 2 for allowing me to stay here and actually kind of changing last minute, Mass last night. So Lord, we thank you. We need your Holy Spirit to guide us. We want your will to be done, not my will, not the will of the world, but we want your will to be done. And if this is to be done, we ask you to guide us, and if we need our hearts softened, please do that and bring us new life in this community no matter what happens. We really do need renewal. We need your help. We pray that your will be done in the words your Son taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. May Almighty God bless you for your care, for your being here. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Red, did you have anything else? Okay, thanks. We have a gathering at the social hall if you want to come. Thank you, Schultz and Associates. Amanda, David.